So welcome to another one of Mydylarama's video interviews. Today we are joined by actor, budding writer, Matt Houlihan, who also does this YouTube thing. So he'll tell us a bit more about this YouTube thing, which is the reason we've got him on today in the first place. So Matt, hello.
Hello, lovely to see you, Abla.
Lovely to see you too. Tell us a bit more about this YouTube thing.
I mean, literally, I think things like the lockdown really have spurred kind of really unusual, innovative practices and behaviours, and I partly to keep me sane, really, I got it into my head, and I'm still trying to work out why, to start a channel of reactions and reviews of the world of Bollywood cinema and stars and all of that culture. And because I'd always been interested in it from afar, but I'd never really dipped into it. And for some reason, it captured my imagination. I thought, oh yeah, I know how to stick things on YouTube. I can stick the odd video and things. So I just started really in a very guerrilla way, and just started editing on iMovie and trying whatever I could really to make something that was interesting to me and potentially interesting to somebody elsewhere in the world.
So how did you get into, why pick Bollywood in particular? How did you get into that genre?
Well, what I've discovered really is that it's a completely different cinematic world to the Western one, and I just remember seeing something on television years ago about a guy who ended up living with two wives, and it was like a comedy ending and it was a musical ending, and it was this most curious thing. And I've always been interested in British and American, cinema, and that's kind of what we're immersed in as Westerners. But for some reason, it just peaked. It entered my consciousness again in the lockdown. I was like, I do need to look at this world. You see the odd thing, and obviously, there are people from the diaspora in the West who grow up with that in their childhood. And when I started putting out videos, people reached out to me and were saying, this is the stuff that I remember from being a child. These are the tunes that I grew up with my parents and grandparents that they loved, and that really engaged me to move further into it and to explore more, because we are deprived of it here in the West. We don't, unless we look for it, we don't encounter it. And what I've found is incredible filmmakers and incredible artists and choreographers, and you get complacent in London and in the UK. You think everything is here. You think that we have the best stuff here, but it's been a joyous journey for me as an actor and as a lover of cinema, to encounter this whole universe of great work.
Well, so how did you go from discovering Bollywood to deciding to produce some reaction videos to those?
Man, it really happened quite organically, and I'm still trying to work out what happened with it really. But it was because you can see on YouTube, you can see the odd song because all of these films have a collection of songs in them. And so it was very easy to just look up something or to find something randomly and be like, oh, that looks really interesting. And you're taken on a whole journey in this 4 or 5 minute song with these incredible actors and dancers. And that's just part of a larger film. And they might be of the same kind of genre, or they might be a mix of genres within the same film. I found a lot of these films which, if you read on their plot on Wikipedia, they're incredibly tragic, but actually a lot of the songs are incredibly uplifting and positive and comedic. And I found that a really interesting dichotomy, and something that we're not perhaps used to here so much. It was a very nice blending. And there's a great filmmaker called Sanjay Leela Bhansali who made DEVDAS and quite a few things which crossed over into the West, and Cannes and things like that. And he made some incredible films which literally traversed every genre through different songs, and you could have like half a dozen to a dozen songs in each film, and it's just a joyous experience to see that kind of filmmaking. It's really innovative in my
Yeah.
experience.
So your channel's racked up quite the views. So how did you go about promoting it? What do you think was the key factor that attracted all those views? Because they are very funny to watch, your reaction videos, and I think it's I think that your reactions are so earnest and maybe sometimes point out the obvious. So there's something really amusing about them.
Yeah, I really am not a promoter in any way. I don't. It's been very organic, and it's been a credit to people who love that culture and that cinema around the world, because they've engaged it and they've adopted it, and I've been overwhelmed with suggestions of the next thing to react to and watch. And I think because it's called A Brit Reacts to Bollywood, it does what it says on the tin. So it is literally a green, totally inexperienced, like British person, like watching an entirely new world of like films, and I'm constantly being surprised, and people are constantly like updating me and informing me and educating me on what to watch and why things are the way they are and what that means, and it's just incredible. Add to that the fact that India has this incredibly long-standing culture with so many, such a wealth of languages and different cinemas, and different audiences and different cultural references. So it's just been like, it's like such an education, and it's joyous. So yeah, the promotion really has been on the part of the audience rather than myself. I've only been doing it since August. I'm just over 5,000 5,000 subscribers now. And literally most of the time I've been pumping out videos, editing them, and then putting them out twice a week. An old one from the 100 greatest Bollywood songs on BBC Asian Network. There's a list voted for popularly. And then I look at something more modern as on the Saturday. So yeah, like, it's been that the last few weeks, though, the last month or so, I've started doing live streams, which is great because I love the engagement. But it's a challenge, though. Like, the platform is a challenge that I'm using. I'm just constantly trying to learn, and also YouTube is extremely strict with not only copyright but what they might consider, whatever they might class as infringements.
Well, I was going to ask about that. How did you navigate that sort of thing when you show, because you show clips of the films and clips of the dance sequences and so on?
It's not easy. I mean, most of them, vast majority of the videos are demonetized. So it's never like, and I've noticed that with, there's a whole world of reaction channels, and I'm such a newbie compared to some people who do incredible amounts of stuff. But from my understanding, from talking to one or two of them, there's no monetization on the part of advertising revenue and stuff with YouTube. That's a whole world, like people who produce videos consistently as a sort of career on YouTube. But but the live streams have been really interesting. I have received voluntary donations from people, and I've received so much feedback and such community from them, that it's made it worthwhile in so many senses. But YouTube itself, I find, I think they're extremely nervous of litigation when it comes to copyright. So obviously, like anything live, they will. I mean, the last one I did literally was blocked just before I ended the stream, and they didn't explain why they did it. And I asked them a couple of times.
Yeah.
So in my experience, they're very difficult to work with, YouTube. But if you're doing it for the love of it, and if you're creating content that you're pretty sure isn't going to be challenged or blocked midstream, then continue to do it. I'm doing it. I'm literally doing it for the love of it.
Fair enough.
How else can I put it? Yeah, it's an ongoing process with YouTube. I'm still learning.
Yeah,
really learning. But when it comes to communication, they are a challenge. I have to say that.
But presumably you've got into this after, what is it, August, a year or so of lockdown and COVID. So as an actor, how have you found it? What other avenues for your work have you managed to
What, in terms of lockdown and stuff?
well, yeah, in terms of work generally, how have you found it? Because you're essentially an actor. So
Yeah.
how,
Yeah.
I mean, I assume your work has been impacted. Um, but before August and the launch of this YouTube channel, what projects
Oh gosh,
had you started?
I mean, it's been such a long lockdown. But I did I did Uncle Vanya before lockdown properly happened, and I played Uncle Vanya, a younger version of Uncle Vanya than than is traditional, and I really loved it because it was more in the Russian vein, which was like a comedy.
Mhm.
When you talk about kind of, you know, subverting traditional like ideas of tragedy, that was a really interesting thing.
And I
But
remember that was just before it kicked in,
I know,
really.
I
Yeah.
know. And I don't know. I might have. Everybody says they think they had COVID before it officially came, but I loved that. But I think when it comes to things like lockdown, you're forced to go online and be innovative and to look at other people's work online. I mean, we created my for some reason my name constantly comes up on Zoom as this character name that I did for a wonderful writer called Sophia, who did a Zoom based like sketch that we did through lockdown. I really enjoyed that. I think there's a lot of people have made a lot of really interesting projects, I think, over the
Mm.
time. But for me, like doing this thing on YouTube was so simple because I didn't have to rely on a writer. I didn't have to rely on any other party to create some kind of theatrical thing. I just could be myself, learning about Bollywood and stuff. And actually, as an actor, I've found like watching people like Shah Rukh Khan and Amitabh Bachchan and the incredible Madhuri Dixit, people like that, has been a huge like education as an actor. And the fact is, like, I did some great workshops with Ricky Beadle Blair online during lockdown. He's been very encouraging of people, and particularly with mental health and stuff like that, and keeping yourself um, feeling like a human being and creative. So I started to write, and I've been writing sketches and, you know, pilots and things like that that really interest me. So it's been more about things that have just interested me, and I feel like I've been more of an agent of creation than just an actor who
Okay.
you know, reflects somebody else's work. But also just watching these Bollywood films, like the writing and the like the cinematography and the eye of people like Sanjay Leela Bansali, like how they can visually tell a story. It's just, it is, I feel like I've literally been going through a school of like learning from other people. So it has been a real blessing. Like it's always been in my view, the lockdown's always been a double-edged sword kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's been extremely tragic and it's been extremely frustrating, but it's also been, it's afforded us other avenues of creativity and looking into ourselves and trying new things. I think that's been
Yeah.
really interesting.
So going back to Bollywood, what have been, I guess, I would like to say your key moments, but maybe your favorite films?
Okay, definitely Devdas is up
Okay.
there. Devdas was released in like 2002, 2003. It's got Shah Rukh Khan, Madhuri Dixit. It's based on this incredible book set during the Raj. It's just it's the peak of Sanjay Leela Bansali's work. I recommend anybody watch it. And it's when did he? Yeah, like it went to Cannes. It made some big awards in the West. Like it became international. And there's, oh my gosh, there's so many great 90s. I mean, listen, you know, we all realize how cheesy the 80s and 90s was, and I've really learned to embrace that kind of cinema. Like there's some amazingly wonderful cheesy Bollywood work from the 80s and 90s with these great stars like Madhuri Dixit. There's a great song which I recommend anybody watch, which is called Om Shanti Om, I'm trying to remember the name of the film. Somebody will kill me for forgetting the name of the film, but it's got, I think it's Rishi Kapoor in it, and the song itself, the film is about a man who is, in the first act of the film, he's murdered. He's the lead. He's murdered by a villain, and then he's reborn, reincarnated. 20 years later, he becomes a pop star. And so it's this incredible mix of thriller, Hindu cosmology, and disco, because the song Om Shanti Om is this giant set where he's dancing on a huge rotating record player, and it's super psychedelic and like silver outfits and stuff. It's the most, but aside from all that, the music, the song itself is amazing. It's amazing. It's so good. I mean, I'll give you the link to it.
Well, I was going to say, where do you normally watch those films?
I just bang them out on YouTube. I watch them on YouTube. There's a very kindly guy who offered to translate them for me because people kept saying, you're missing out so much.
Did you watch them then without any subtitles or anything?
Initially, yeah, but now I've got translations into English, and it's so poetic. And I just love the genres and the subjects that people explore, you know, obviously like family dramas, conflicts. Very much there's this theme of people sacrificing their romantic love for a sense of duty to family or nation or something like that, and playing with that, and people subverting that in the last few decades in Bollywood cinema. And I think things like that has been a really interesting evolution. I mean, to be perfectly honest, like a lot of the films from the 40s, well, mainly the 50s and 60s are incredible.
Yeah.
And I've seen that in the more recent years, there's been a trend towards more Hollywoodized kind of, you know, spectacular type stuff. But I still think that there is that great core of Indian cinema that is incredibly, just really high quality songwriting and performance. So it's interesting to watch that journey from like the 50s to now.
Well, picking up on you talking about that evolution in style, have you noticed any evolution in terms of subject matter or dealing with social issues or anything like that, where you might feel that more recent films tend to be tend to focus more on that side of things, or not?
Yeah, I think certainly to do with gender and sexual attitudes and stuff. Like even there was this wonderful video which I watched with Amitabh Bachchan, and he sort of copied, it was a bit like Dancing in the Street, he sort of copied Mick Jagger and stuff. The film itself was it was to me very clearly kind of like Scarface. With Al Pacino, but it was about 1990. Amitabh Bachchan, he's in this kind of Mumbai seedy underworld. He's flirting with this lady, and she's constantly like saying no, but she's constantly giving him the come on. It's a really good video, but then at the end, he just jumps on her and sort of, you know, covers her in kisses and stuff. And I'm like, okay, this is actually problematic, and I had to address that.
Yeah,
and it was really important. And the amount of people who responded to that video, you know, talking about their own experiences, talking about their own attitudes to how things have changed in Bollywood cinema, because that was in the early 90s. And I definitely see a willingness to kind of face more so now, a willingness to face that problematic aspect of male attitudes towards consent and towards what women are, because that, you know, that was a crazy kind of example of somebody who was hypersexualized. She was dressed as a flamenco dancer. She kept saying no, but her eyes were sort of, her body language was all kind of like and I just don't see that being acceptable anymore in Hindi cinema. It was really interesting to see that. Yeah, and yeah, there's so much. I mean, some of the greatest stars of Bollywood are women, and they you know, I mean, I keep bringing up Madhuri Dixit. She's just incredible. Helen, the choreographers, the writers, some of the directors. Like there's definitely been a shift, but I would hope that it doesn't just sort of try to replicate Hollywood in its production values and stuff, because I've seen some of that as well. Yeah.
Well, an elegant segue yet again. We're going to end this interview on your top picks of the year, which includes Hollywood. So anything, international films, TV even. What have you loved watching and you
Oh my
recommend?
gosh, I've got a list here somewhere.
Oh.
Oh, what I really liked. I liked The King of Staten Island.
Yeah.
With what's is it Stephen? I've got the list somewhere actually, because I wrote down a bunch of them. I really okay, give me a sec.
Were you prepared then?
No, because I wrote these and I
Put the
wanted
list
to
together.
online. Yeah, I would say okay. I can't remember, but I think the King of Staten Island I really loved. It was very funny, beautifully kind of simple dialogue and like very natural dialogue. And I've been, I can't remember anything. There's so much good stuff that I've been watching as well. Let me look on my Netflix.
This is all live.
No, don't tell me it's live. Okay. I can't remember, but I'll write you down a list of things that
We'll put it in the blurb under the video.
please.
Matt's
I did like the
recommendation.
trial of the Chicago 7. I thought that was very good.
Yeah.
And
Anything in the last week or so?
Oh my gosh, in the last week?
This week's top picks?
Okay. No. I can't remember at all. No, I'll have to write a list.
That's all right. We'll put it at the bottom.
Okay. Yeah. But no, I've been watching a lot of stuff on Netflix, to be honest.
Okay.
I've been watching Your Honor on, is it Amazon Prime?
I don't know.
With
I don't
Bryan
know it.
Cranston. It's very good. It's he plays a judge, but it's a little bit like Breaking Bad, which is
no bad thing.
No bad thing, I suppose. But the writing's good.
Exactly. Nice note to end it on.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us, Matt. Your videos are hilarious, really, really entertaining. So we massively recommend checking them out on YouTube, and we'll put all the relevant links in a blurb below. Thank you for watching.